the independent video store we went to, it must have had a pretty large horror section, because it was a whole aisle and there were shelves on both sides with horror movies. And so, the VHS box is facing outwards, looking at you. And I remember I would always, because I was curious, even at that age, with horror and scary things. And so I'd go down the aisle and I'd be looking at all these scary images, but then I would also constantly have to look over my shoulder, because in my mind, I thought the monsters were coming out of the boxes behind me.
I'm glad you say that, because when I would put the boxes up, our video store ended up closing when I was 12 years old, maybe 13. Just because Blockbuster was too powerful. But and the internet was coming around and people could find porn other places. But I would purposefully set the boxes up so that our video store had the long aisles, but then had these star racks. So you would walk into this little triangle section and there'd be horror movies on both sides. And so I would set them up as it looked like the monsters on the front were going to war with each other, because I wanted people to have that experience where you're looking at one thing and then you turn and there's another monster just staring in your face. And so it's nice to hear that people actually had reactions like that in video stores.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. The other thing, you keep mentioning Blockbuster. Have you seen the Netflix documentary?
Yes.
Yeah.
The last Blockbuster. Yeah.
I just watched that a few months back. So good and so nostalgic.
Oh, totally. And so I feel like a huge traitor for this, but when I was a young man, I owned a security company and we we're trying to get the security company off the ground. Not super important, but I went to work at Blockbuster to supplement my income. And I felt horrible about it. And I was like, it's a good thing my stepdad is dead, or he'd be so mad at me right now. But I loved it. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. And so I had this fondness for Blockbuster too, not just the nostalgia of shopping there and, renting from there, but working there and talking to people and convincing them to rent these movies. And so fell in love with Blockbuster. Fast forward, Blockbusters are closing down. My life had taken a lot of different turns, but I ended up being the regional director for an escape room. And one of our escape rooms was in Bend, Oregon, a block away from the final Blockbuster. And so I would have to travel out there 3 or 4 times a year. Every single time I would go to that Blockbuster and hang out with the people in that documentary. And so when the documentary came out, I was just oh my God, this is amazing. And so I got to watch all these people that I got to hang out with. And it just, so it felt like nostalgia on so many different levels watching that documentary.
Wow.
Because chances are I'll probably never go back there. I don't see why I'd have any reason to go to Bend, Oregon other than go to Blockbuster, but.
That's interesting, man. We, our lives have a few similarities the more you talk and say things, because my stepdad actually worked for Movie Gallery in its waning days. He was there when the ship completely went down, but he worked there for a few years. And so, yeah, it's interesting to know, your stepdad was also associated with movie stores. And
yep. I wish it was still around. I mean, I probably wouldn't be doing any of the things I'm doing or have the success that I'm having now, because I would just probably live in that video store. I'd be that weird guy that sat around talking about movies to anybody that would come in.